Here we are this afternoon. We've been asked a couple of questions about the A.N.I.E, and so we are going to do our best to answer them as succinctly and as clearly as possible. So the first question we have is,
well, what makes the A.N.I.E so different?
Well, it is a very different assessment. It's a great question. Right from the beginning, we were looking at how do we create an assessment that actually gets to the deeper thinking in math, and traditionally it had all been word problem type assessments.
And so what was the problem with word problems?
Well, students had to read them, and there was a whole piece around reading comprehension, and there's also, in word problems, there's all kinds of extraneous information in there that students have to sift out, and before you know it, are you really assessing math or are you assessing something else? And so with the A.N.I.E, we thought, let's flip that on its ear and let's make it an upside down sort of word problem kind of question, where we start with the math at the peak. So they start with the actual, what is the learning outcome or the math skill you're looking for, and from there you build out to, at the very end, the student will come up with their own real life math question or real life math application, in effect their own word problem.
So they learn how to do word problems by flipping a word problem upside down, starting with the math and working down to using language that works in their context and that they understand.
Yeah, and throughout that process, they're making estimates, they're drawing pictures, they're doing calculations in a variety of different ways. They're checking and they're guessing and checking their work. They're coming up with their real life piece of them. They're doing that whole metacognitive piece at the end. Like, does this make sense? And well, you know, it's a very powerful process that.
So there's two kind of questions that we get asked all the time about the A.N.I.E. First question is, will it work with the program I'm using in my classroom or district or whatever the case is? Second one is, that's all fine for elementary, but does this work in higher level math, say in the senior, grade 11, grade 12, and into university? So first question, will A.N.I.E work with program X that we use in my classroom or my district?
And the answer is, well, yes, it works. It works as a supplement to the A.N.I.E program. It's very program agnostic. It can be used as, there really is no limits in terms of we haven't seen one other program out there that flies in the face of what A.N.I.E would provide.
Yeah, so whatever program I'm using in my classroom, A.N.I.E will come in and support that program and strengthen it, hopefully strengthen it. Second question is around, that's all fine for elementary, but does A.N.I.E work in the senior maths and early university, stuff like that?
And really, the interesting piece there is that, well, yes, it does, but it's only limited by our own how we see math. So for instance, coming up with a real life application for algebra and any kind of higher level math is actually quite a struggle for us that were kind of taught math in a very rote way. And so I have a whole blog entry we have a whole blog entry on the piece around an algebraic expression 3c times 2c. And the real life application is actually really quite simple, although it took us days to arrive at it. We're just not at this point, through our previous education, we're not really set up to see math this way. Yet it's so important as we move forward in the 21st century with all our curricular competencies that we do understand how to apply the math. And so it's super important that we do this at the middle grades and the high school secondary grades.
And I think that's one of the things that we've both seen as being a real strength of the A.N.I.E is that as soon as you start thinking about the authentic applications for the math you're teaching, you can't help but start having conversations about it. And somebody walks into the staff room and says, I have to teach this concept and I can't think of an authentic application, and suddenly you have 3 or 4 teachers pouring their heads over coming up with a real life application, and the deep conversation that goes on with that is then reflected back in the classroom when the lesson is actually taught. So A.N.I.E, the book, was published in 2014. What has the impact been since the book launch, or what's a couple of impacts since the book launch? And I think the answer that I would give to that question. Annie the book focuses mainly on instructional practice in the classroom. However, there's a chapter on sort of school-wide and district-wide kind of assessment, and that's an area that's been picked up particularly by your school district.
Yeah. As well as a variety of other districts in the province, but we've really taken that to the next level. So the book talked about it in a more of a theoretical piece, and we're actually now living that. We have over 200 teachers that have been trained in our school district version of A.N.I.E, which we're calling SNAP, and we have about 5,000 students that are using A.N.I.E/SNAP on a regular basis, and then we're focusing on grades 2 to 7 right now. We have grade K and 1 teachers that are working on their own version of it, and we have a few teachers at the grade 8 and 9 level that are also experimenting with how this works in their classrooms. But from a district-wide perspective, that piece has been a really interesting and important piece of work since the book launch.
So, in summary then, if I've heard this correctly, the A.N.I.E is different because it's an upside-down word problem that focuses on authentic application of math skills. It'll work with any program that somebody's using in their class or district, and it's useful in grades as a concept going right up to the senior grades. And one of the pieces that's been developed in the last little bit is the district-wide piece. And if you want more information on how Chilliwack School District is using it, Chilliwack's SD33 something or other is the website.
It's snap.sd33.bc.ca.
There you go.